Good morning and welcome to this Good Friday meditation. Normally our pattern for Good Friday would be to meet in church at about 9:30 in the morning for a half hour of meditation on the suffering of Christ on this Good Friday. And then we would walk together, those of us who wished, in a relaxed way towards the Bancroft Recreation Ground, where we would meet with hundreds of other Christians from all denominations in the town. And at about 10:30, after a prayer, we would walk solemnly up Bancroft and into High Street to gather in the marketplace for a united service. Sadly, that's not possible for us this year, but we can have this time of contemplation and meditation together. And then maybe you will find some other time later in the day when you can be quiet and when you could think about Christ's passion. When I've done meditation in St. Mark's on Good Friday in the past, I've usually included some music, but sadly that's not possible for me to do legally. So this will be a service purely of readings and of reflection, and I hope you will find it helpful. I'm going to do it in 3 parts, so you will need to click on 3 different links in order to get the full meditation service. I'm going to begin now. It would be foolish to deny that this year is different from those which most of us have experienced. There is, as Jane said in her Iona communion service yesterday, a heightened sense of desolation. Our churches are closed. People are falling ill. We cannot visit one another, so we cannot give the comfort that the physical presence and touch of another human being can give. We are all confronted by risk these viral days. Risk as we go out to shop for essential supplies. Risk as we go out to exercise, when a few of those doing the same thing seem to have no concept of what 2 meters distance actually means. Risk even of being infected by contaminated packaging delivered to our homes. The risks most of us are obliged to take are as nothing compared to the risks doctors, nurses and professional carers have to run every day they're on shift. Often without the proper protection, our 2 meters become their 20 centimeters as they tend the elderly, or, a far greater risk to themselves, they lean over the bed of an acutely ill COVID-19 sufferer whose breath and coughs they cannot avoid. We honour such dedication, such vocation. But this morning we turn our attention away from our fears for ourselves and our concern for others, and we cast our minds back nearly 2,000 years to a Friday morning that was to change the world forever in a way that no plague, however terrible, could do. I've talked about risk and fear. I'm not sure whether the word risk can be applied to Jesus. Risk implies that something bad may happen. There can have been no doubt whatsoever in Jesus' mind by the time he woke up on that Friday morning, if indeed he was able to sleep or allowed to sleep by guards inflicting as much misery on him as they could for their personal gratification. No doubt as to what was to happen within a matter of an hour or 2. Not risk then, but certainty. And fear, our fears, are about the possibility of becoming ill, of discomfort, of struggling to breathe, or of having those things happen to someone we love as we find our way through this time of crisis. All possible, but also possibly avoidable if we are all careful. We can be sure that Jesus knew fear. He had, after all, asked God if he might not have to go through with the ordeal that lay ahead. Just imagine the cross for a moment. Imagine its weight, its height. Perhaps Jesus had actually seen people being crucified. He would certainly have heard about this most inhuman of punishments, born of the minds of a culture which enjoyed seeing animals and humans slaughtered in the arena as entertainment. Mercifully, we have abandoned such cruelty, but in the sport of bullfighting it persists still in parts of Spain. Jesus could scarcely imagine the pain he would shortly suffer, pain made even worse, if that is possible, by his mental state as he emerged from custody already flogged, head smarting from the thorns pressed down onto it, mocked and derided. He was the object of pure malice. And then to carry your cross through the streets of the city as people gawped, and up the hill to Golgotha. Was it even a mercy that Simon of Cyrene was dragooned into taking over the burden? Jesus would not die of exhaustion before he reached the place of execution. He would live to endure the cross of shame, so that all could see his agony, all could hear his words of anguish, all could hear his prayer, that those who had willed this on him be forgiven. In God's plan, it had to be that way. It was not only the Son who was to suffer, it was the Father too. Let's pause for a few minutes. This will be painful for us. In our minds, we're going to walk with Jesus from his cell out into the street. Let's take on, if we can, something of his pain. Our backs, our heads, both burning with inflicted wounds. People jeering, guards goading. The cross, the work of 2 men to lift. But we must bear it alone. Every step is torture, and there will be at least 1,000 of them. How can we be truly grateful to Jesus without at least trying to share in the horror of these early hours of the first Good Friday? After a short prayer, we fall silent as we join him on his last earthly journey and along the road to Calvary. Jesus, our friend and brother, born to save us, dying to save us, as we follow you along the way of pain, may we always follow in the way you lead us, for you lead us to salvation. We thank you with sorrowful hearts for what lies before you today. You may like to stop your recording now. When you have given yourself time for contemplation, select the second link to continue with our meditation.